The frost artist. Elias lived where winter lasted longer than summer, where the frost came early and left late, painting the world in white and silver. He was a quiet man, neither young nor old, with sharp eyes like the winter sky and fingers nimble as icicles. Each night, when the town was asleep and the moon hung low like a lantern in the frosty air, Elias would walk the silent streets with a small brush made from pine twigs. His canvas was the cold glass of windows, and his paint was the frost itself. Where others saw only icy sheets blurring their view, Elias saw stories waiting to be told. He traced delicate patterns, the curled tendrils of frost fern, the soaring wings of birds that never flew in real life, and sometimes a lone tree standing proud against a snowy hill. His art was fragile. With the first breath of dawn, warm fingers of sunlight crept through the glass, and his creations melted away like dreams forgotten. But Elias never minded. Each night was a new chance, a new story to paint in the cold. One December evening, as the wind howled like a distant wolf and the snow piled high against the window panes, Elias felt a stirring he had never known before. The frost was thicker, the air sharper, and the moon's light colder, almost as if the night itself was holding its breath. He paused outside the old bakery, its windows frozen solid, the perfect surface for his next work. He lifted his mittened hand, his breath puffing white clouds in the biting air, and began to draw. First came the stag, its head lifted high, antlers stretching wide like branches heavy with snow. Its eyes seemed to glow with a strange light, calm and wise. Next, he sketched a castle towers rising tall, walls built strong, frosted battlements shimmering like diamonds. Finally, a ship sailed across the glass, its sails billowing as if caught in a frozen wind, the hull cutting through an icy sea. As Elias stepped back, he shivered and pulled his coat tighter around him. The frost crackled softly under his fingertips as he reached out to touch the stag's antlers. To his surprise, a faint warmth spread through his mitten. His breath caught and he blinked. Could it be? The frost, his art, was not melting. In the quiet that followed, snowflakes drifted lazily down, the cold air humming with a secret magic no one yet understood. Elias smiled, a small flicker of wonder brightening his usually calm face. Tonight, the frost had become something more. Word spread through the village by morning, as if the frost itself whispered secrets from window to window. People woke to find the bakery's icy windows alive with shapes. A stag, a castle, a ship that did not fade with the rising sun. Instead, they stayed, sharp and clear, glistening like frozen jewels. Curious townsfolk wrapped in thick coats and woolen scarves pressed their gloved fingers against the glass, tracing the outlines of Elias's night drawings. Each touch brought a strange warmth, like the gentle heat of a crackling fire, spreading slowly through their gloves and fingers. Yet the frost never melted. It remained firm and cold, holding its magic tight. Mrs. Alder, the baker's wife, was the first to tell Elias. She came to the bakery early, breath steaming in the cold, and found the windows glowing softly with frost. "Elias," she said, eyes wide, "your art, it's still here, it's warm somehow. How is this possible?" Elias shrugged, the surprise clear on his face. "I don't know," he said softly, "but it feels like the frost is alive." As the day passed, more and more people gathered, marveling at the strange magic. Children pressed their mittened hands against the frost stag's antlers, giggling as warmth spread through their fingertips. Old Mr. Whitaker, who never smiled, stared long at the castle, his icy breath mingling with the frozen design, as if remembering something lost. The town square soon became a gallery of frost drawings. Elias moved quietly among the crowd, watching with a strange mixture of pride and wonder. The frost seemed to hum beneath his touch, crackling like thin ice underfoot on a frozen lake. That night, Elias returned to his art with renewed excitement. The cold bit sharper, and his breath frosted the air as he painted. This time, he worked faster, drawing scenes of snowy forests, mountain peaks, and a lone wolf howling under the full moon. With every stroke, The frost warmed his gloves, a soft glow beneath the cold. He paused to touch his work. The frost's magic pulsed beneath his fingers, crackling faintly like tiny ice crystals breaking and reforming. But as he stepped back, he felt a sudden chill run through him, sharper than before, like a warning whispered on the wind. The frost had changed, and so had Elias's world. That night, after Elias finished his frost paintings, the town settled into an unusual hush. The usual crackle of firewood in chimneys seemed softer, and even the snowflakes fell slower, as if watching. Elias walked home beneath the heavy sky, footsteps muffled by thick snow. He wrapped his scarf tighter, his mind alive with questions. What was this strange magic that made his frost art live beyond dawn? And why now, after all these years of silent, fleeting paintings? As he neared his small wooden house on the edge of town, the wind whispered through the bare branches, carrying a voice almost too faint to hear. Elias! He stopped, heart quickening. The voice was soft, like the rustle of dry leaves, yet clear. Who's there? He called, glancing around. Only the moon and stars watched him back. He stepped inside, closing the door with a soft thud. Inside, the air was warm and smelled of pine and wood smoke. He hung his coat and sat by the window, tracing the frost that clung to the glass. Tonight, even inside, the frost glimmered with a faint blue light. Elias's fingers brushed the icy patterns, and again, warmth spread through his skin. But this time, he saw something deeper, a faint pulse beneath the frost, like a heartbeat frozen in ice. Suddenly, the glass shimmered, and a crack split through the frost stag's antlers, thin as a spider's thread. Elias's breath caught. The crack widened slowly, glowing faintly. From the fractured ice, a pale light spilled out, spilling like liquid silver onto the windowsill. It gathered into a shape, misty at first, then solidifying into a slender figure cloaked in white. The figure raised its hand, and the frost stag blinked, lifting its head as if alive. Elias blinked hard, his heart pounding. Who? What are you? The figure smiled softly, eyes like glimmering frost. I am the frost spirit, keeper of winter's magic, it said, voice like the hush of falling snow. For centuries, I have watched the frost dance and fade, never lasting beyond dawn. But your art has changed this. You have awakened the heart of winter. Elias swallowed, breath trembling. Why me? Because your hands hold the cold with warmth. You see beauty where others see only ice. Your frost carries life now, a gift and a burden. The spirit reached out, touching Elias's palm. The cold and warmth met, swirling together like fire and ice. Your art will live, but you must learn to control the magic before it controls you. Elias nodded slowly, feeling the weight of a new world settling on his shoulders. Outside, the frost shimmered like never before, and the town's windows glowed softly in the frozen night. The next morning, Elias awoke to a strange stillness. The usual sound of village life, the clatter of carts, the chatter of neighbors, was muffled, as if the world itself was holding its breath. He pulled on his boots and stepped outside. The snow sparkled unnaturally bright, each flake catching the weak sunlight like tiny stars frozen in time. The frost art on every window glowed faintly, as if touched by the spirit he had met. People moved slowly, their faces calm but distant. Elias noticed that no one seemed to be in a hurry, and when they touched the frost drawings, their hands warmed but their eyes held a hint of sadness. At the bakery, Mrs. Alder greeted him with a tired smile. "It's beautiful," she said softly, "but something feels different, as if the frost holds us captive." Elias frowned. "Captive?" She nodded. "I touched the castle last night. My hands warmed, yes, but then I felt trapped, like I couldn't move away." The worry in her voice settled in Elias's chest like a cold stone. He spent the day walking the streets, watching as townsfolk lingered by the frost art, fingers tracing lines again and again. The magic that once brought joy now seemed to hold them in place. That evening, Elias returned to the spot where he first met the frost spirit. The night was colder than before, the air crisp and biting. "Frost spirit," Elias called softly. "The frost art, it's not just living, it's holding the town still. What is happening?" From the shimmering frost on the window pane, the figure appeared again, more solid this time. "The magic you awakened is ancient and powerful," the spirit explained. "It connects with the hearts of those who touch it, but without guidance, it can bind them to the cold, freezing their spirits." Elias clenched his fists. "How do I fix it?" The spirit's eyes shone like icy stars. "You must learn to balance the warmth of your heart with the chill of winter. Only then can you release the frost's hold and give your art the life it deserves." Elias nodded, understanding the weight of the challenge ahead. That night, beneath the frozen moon, he set to work again. This time, he painted not just with frost but with care, breathing warmth into his strokes, imagining the life behind the ice. As he worked, the frost shimmered and cracked softly, humming with energy. The stag lifted its head and stepped from the window, its hooves leaving frost patterns on the snow. The castle's towers glowed, walls alive with sparkling ice. The ship's sails caught a frozen breeze, ready to sail beyond the glass. Elias smiled, hope lighting his breath in the cold night air. Morning light spilled softly over the village, but the air felt different, lighter, somehow. Elias watched as the townsfolk moved with gentle ease, smiles returning to their faces. The frost art still glistened on the windows, but now it seemed to pulse with warmth rather than bind them. Mrs. Alder came to him again, her eyes bright with relief. "The frost, your magic, it's freeing us," she said, gripping his arm. "I touched the stag this morning, and my fingers warmed, but I felt no weight, just peace." Elias's heart lifted, but he knew the journey was only beginning. Over the following days, he practiced carefully, learning to blend the cold frost with the warmth inside himself. Each night, he painted new scenes, frozen forests filled with light, ice castles shimmering with hope, and ships sailing toward dawn. The town watched in wonder, their spirits lifted by the glowing frost art that no longer held them captive, but inspired them to dream. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Elias stood before the largest window in the village square. Taking a deep breath, he traced a delicate frost spiral that glowed softly beneath his mittened hand. The frost spirit appeared beside him, nodding approvingly. "You are learning, Elias. The magic of frost is a dance of cold and warmth, life and stillness." Elias smiled, feeling the power of his art and the weight of its responsibility. As winter deepened, the frost art became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the coldest nights, warmth could be found, and beauty could shine through the frost. And Elias, the quiet frost artist, had found his place between ice and fire, painting a world where magic lived in every frozen breath. Winter stretched on, deepening its hold over the village. The nights grew longer, the wind sharper, and the stars brighter against the dark sky. Yet Elias felt a new warmth growing inside him, a quiet strength born from his bond with the frost. One evening, as snowflakes drifted like feathers through the air, Elias wandered toward the frozen river at the edge of town. The surface was a mirror of ice, smooth and unbroken. He knelt by the bank, his breath forming soft clouds in the cold. He dipped his mittened fingers onto the icy surface, tracing patterns beneath the glassy layer, swirls, stars, and delicate flowers. The ice hummed softly, a gentle music only he could hear. Suddenly, the frost began to shift and glow beneath his touch. Cracks spread in slow, graceful lines, opening like the petals of a frozen bloom. From the fractured ice, shapes began to emerge. A family of swans, their feathers shimmering like crystal, gliding silently beneath the frozen surface. Elias's heart soared. This was no longer just frost on glass. It was life, frozen in time but full of movement and magic. As he watched, a small boy appeared beside him, eyes wide with wonder. "Did you make those?" the boy asked, his voice breathless. Elias smiled gently. "Yes, The frost listens to the heart. It can create many things if you know how to speak its language. The boy nodded, eyes shining. Can I learn? Elias thought for a moment, then reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a small twig brush, worn smooth from years of use, and handed it to the boy. Tonight, when the frost comes again, meet me by the river, Elias said. I'll teach you to paint with the frost. The boy's grin was as bright as the moonlight on snow. I'll be there. As the boy ran off, Elias felt a new purpose stirring within him. A hope that the magic of frost could be shared, passed on to others who saw the world not just as cold and harsh, but full of hidden beauty. The river whispered its icy song, and the frost glowed softly, waiting for the next story to be painted. That night, Elias returned to the frozen riverbank, the twig brush warm in his hand. The boy arrived, bundled in layers of wool, his cheeks flushed with excitement and cold. Elias knelt by the ice and dipped the brush gently, the frost sparkling beneath the moonlight. Watch closely, he said softly. The frost is alive. It listens to your heart, your breath, even your thoughts. Together, they traced patterns on the icy surface. Swirling winds, fluttering leaves, and delicate snowflakes. The frost responded, glowing softly, cracks tracing along their designs like veins of silver. The boys' laughter filled the night air, bright and pure, mixing with the crisp sound of frost shifting beneath their touch. You have a gift, Elias said, smiling. But remember, frost art is not just about drawing. It's about feeling the cold and the warmth. Balance both and the magic flows. As the hours passed, the frost art on the river became alive with creatures. Swans that glided beneath the ice, foxes that leapt among frozen trees, and even a dragon curled in sparkling coils. The boy's eyes shone with wonder. It's like a dream, Elias nodded. Winter's dream, but it's real if you believe. As dawn approached, the frost art held steady, glowing softly beneath the first light. The boy looked up, yawned, and said, I want to learn more. Elias placed a hand on his shoulder. Then you'll come with me. There is much to explore. Together, they watched the sun rise, warming the frozen world, but never melting the magic Elias had awakened. Over the next days, Elias and the boy, whose name was Joran, met each night by the river. Elias taught him how to listen to the frost, the way it whispered in the cold, how it shimmered beneath their fingers, and how their own warmth shaped the ice. Joran was eager and quick, his small hands tracing delicate patterns that sparked with magic. With each new design, the frost art grew stronger, more alive. One night, Elias showed Joran how to breathe softly onto the glass before drawing, sending tiny crystals to form in the air like sparkling dust. Your breath is part of the art, Elias said. It carries your spirit. Joran practiced, blowing gentle clouds of frost that shimmered like stars, then drew a glowing fox that seemed to watch them with wise, icy eyes. The village began to notice changes. The frost art on windows glowed brighter, and people spoke in softer tones, touched by the growing magic. But not all were pleased. One evening, as Elias and Joran left the river, a shadow moved silently in the snowy forest nearby. A figure cloaked in dark fur, eyes cold and sharp, watched the boys from behind a tree. Magic of frost? The stranger whispered, voice like cracking ice. This power should not belong to humans. Elias and Joran did not see the watcher, but a chill ran down Elias's spine, a warning from the winter itself. He tightened his grip on the twig brush and glanced toward the dark woods. We must be careful, Joran. There are forces in winter's heart that do not welcome change. Joran nodded, understanding the unspoken danger. That night, as they painted beneath the stars, Elias felt the frost pulse with both wonder and warning. The magic was growing, but so was the darkness that sought to claim it. Winter's dance was far from over. The next morning, the village awoke to an unsettling quiet. The usual chatter of neighbors was replaced by hushed whispers, and the frost on the windows seemed darker, heavier, as if carrying a secret weight. Elias stood by his window, watching as people hesitated to touch the glowing frost art. Even the warmth that once blossomed beneath their gloves was weaker, fading like a distant memory. He felt a cold knot in his chest. The warning from the woods was real. At the riverbank that evening, Elias and Joran prepared to paint. But before they could begin, a deep shadow stretched across the ice. The stranger from the forest stepped into the moonlight. A tall figure cloaked in thick, dark furs, eyes sharp and glinting like shards of frozen glass. "I am Harkin," the stranger said, voice low and rough, "guardian of the winter's old magic. You, Elias, have awakened a power not meant for mortal hands." Elias stood tall, his breath steady despite the cold. "The frost is alive because of us. We share its beauty with the town." Harkin shook his head. "You do not understand. Winter's magic is delicate, a balance of ice and shadow. You risk breaking that balance." Joran stepped forward, eyes wide but brave. "We only want to learn, to make the frost beautiful." Harkin's gaze softened for a moment, then hardened again. "Beauty can hide danger. If you continue, you may bring a frost that never melts, trapping souls in endless winter." Elias clenched his fists. "We will be careful. We will learn." Harkin studied them, then nodded slowly. "Very well, but I will watch, and if the balance breaks, I will act." With that, the shadowy figure melted back into the forest, leaving behind a cold wind that whispered through the trees. Elias and Joran exchanged looks, knowing their journey had become more dangerous, but also more important. That night, as they painted under the frozen stars, Elias whispered, "Winter is a fragile dance. We must step lightly." Joran nodded, his breath a soft mist in the air. The frost shimmered around them, alive with both hope and shadow. Days passed with a strange tension in the air. The villagers moved quietly, and the frost art glowed softly but no longer danced with the same joyful light. Elias and Joran worked nightly, painting stories of hope and warmth onto the icy windows and the frozen river, trying to keep the balance Harkin had warned about. One evening, as snowflakes swirled like tiny stars around them, Elias noticed something troubling. The frost drawings on a nearby house began to crack and spread, breaking apart in jagged patterns that stretched far beyond their usual delicate lines. "What's happening?" Joran asked, eyes wide. Elias's brow furrowed. "The frost is breaking. It's like the magic is tearing itself apart." Suddenly, a cold wind swept through the village, sharper than before, cutting through coats and scarves. The glowing frost on windows began to pulse wildly, shards of ice lifting like tiny blades in the air. From the edge of the forest, a deep, chilling howl echoed, a sound both beautiful and terrible. Harkin stepped from the shadows, his face stern. "The balance is failing," he said grimly. "Winter grows restless." Elias knew the time had come. The magic they had awakened was powerful, but fragile. If it shattered, the village could be trapped in an endless frost, frozen in time. "We need to fix it," Elias said, determination hardening his voice. "But how?" Harkin looked at the frost swirling in the air. "You must create the heart of winter, a single, perfect frost painting that holds the magic together. Only then will the balance be restored." Joran looked up at Elias, hope shining in his eyes. Elias nodded. "Then we paint. Together." Under the shimmering stars, they began, drawing with breath and brush, weaving frost into shapes of light and shadow, warmth and cold. The village watched in silence, holding their breath as the frost artist and his apprentice fought to save winter itself. Elias and Joran worked through the long night, their breaths misting in the cold air as their fingers traced patterns of frost across the largest window in the village square. They moved with quiet purpose, each stroke deliberate, balancing the sharp edges of ice with gentle curves of warmth. Elias paused to steady his shaking hands. The weight of magic was heavier than he had imagined. "Focus on the heart," he murmured. "We must pour all our strength and warmth into the center." Joran nodded, eyes shining with determination. Together, they painted a glowing heart-shaped frost bloom, its petals shimmering with delicate light that seemed to pulse like a living thing. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the air. The frost shivered violently, and for a moment, it seemed the magic might break free and shatter the village. But then, the heart blazed with soft blue fire, sending a wave of warmth and light rippling through the frost art on every window. The jagged cracks began to seal, the frost calming and glowing steadily once more. Harkin stepped forward, his dark eyes softened by a rare smile. "You have done well, Elias. You and your apprentice have restored the balance." Elias felt exhaustion wash over him, but also relief. The frost art no longer threatened to trap the village. It lived as a beautiful, gentle magic. Joran grinned, breathless. "We did it." The villagers gathered, their faces bright with wonder and gratitude. They touched the frost art, feeling warmth blossom beneath their gloves, a reminder that even in the coldest times, hope could grow. Elias looked up at the sky, the first hints of dawn painting the horizon with soft pinks and blues. Winter still held the land, but now it carried a promise, that through care, balance, and warmth, even the frost could become a living, breathing story. And Elias, the quiet frost artist, smiled, knowing his work had only just begun. With the balance restored, Elias felt a quiet joy settle in his heart. The frost art continued to glow on every window, bringing light and warmth to the village through the coldest nights. But there was something new in the air, a deeper magic waiting to be explored. One evening, as the northern lights danced above the snowy hills, Elias and Joran sat by the frozen river. They traced patterns on the ice, their breaths forming swirling clouds that sparkled in the moonlight. "Do you think the frost will always listen to us?" Joran asked, eyes reflecting the shimmering sky. Elias smiled. "If we keep respect for its power, yes. But magic, like winter, changes. We must learn to change with it." Suddenly, a soft glow rose from beneath the ice. The frost shimmered, and shapes appeared. Glowing fish swimming through frozen currents, their scales sparkling like stars. Joran gasped, "It's alive!" Elias nodded. "The frost is more than just ice. It holds stories, memories, and life. Frozen moments waiting to awaken." They spent hours painting the ice, creating worlds beneath the frozen surface. As the village slept, the frost art told its stories of ancient winters, forgotten dreams, and the magic that lives in every cold breath. Elias knew that his journey was far from over. The frost was no longer just his canvas. It was a living, breathing world. And in that frozen world, he would keep painting stories for all to see. Days turned into weeks, and the village settled into a peaceful rhythm. The frost art became a beloved part of life, a silent storyteller of winter's magic. One crisp morning, Elias received a visitor, a tall woman wrapped in furs, her eyes bright like polished ice. She introduced herself as Liz, a traveler from the northern mountains, drawn by tales of the frost artist and his magic. "I've heard your art holds the power of the winter spirits," she said, voice soft but strong. "I wish to learn." Elias studied her carefully. There was something ancient and wise about Liz, a calm that matched the frost's quiet strength. "Then you must come with me," Elias said. "The frost is a language few understand, but with patience it speaks." Together, Elias, Joran, and Liz spent long nights exploring the frost's secrets. Liz taught them ancient songs of ice and snow, melodies that seemed to weave magic into the air. Under her guidance, their frost paintings grew more vibrant, the ice alive with shimmering colors and shapes that told stories of distant mountains and frozen seas. But Liz also warned them of dangers, storms that could freeze time itself, and shadows that whispered beneath the ice. One night, as a fierce wind howled through the village, Elias felt a cold presence watching him. The balance of frost magic was fragile, and winter's deeper mysteries were just beginning to stir. Elias looked to Liz and Joran, determination steady in his gaze. "We must be ready," he said. "Winter still holds many secrets, and our story is far from finished." Winter's grip tightened, and the nights grew colder than ever before. Snowstorms swept through the village, blanketing the world in silence. Yet inside Elias's small home, a warm fire crackled, its glow soft against the frosted windows. Elias, Joran, and Lys gathered around a wooden table, covered in sketches and drawings of frost patterns. Lys hummed an ancient song, her voice weaving through the room like a gentle wind. Suddenly, the frost on the windows began to shimmer, swirling into new shapes. A swirling vortex of ice and light, twisting like a frozen spiral. Elias reached out, fingers trembling as the frost responded, glowing brighter with every touch. "This is no ordinary frost," Lys whispered. "It's the heart of the winter storm, a powerful force that can both create and destroy." Joran's eyes widened. "Can we control it?" Lys shook her head slowly. "Only if we work together, balancing the cold and the warmth inside us." Elias nodded, feeling the weight of the challenge. "Then we must be ready. The storm is coming." Outside, the wind roared louder, and the snow piled higher. The village huddled in their homes, sensing the power rising in the frozen night. But inside, the three frost artists prepared to face the storm, their brushes ready, hearts steady. Winter was no longer just a season. It was a living, breathing force, and Elias was its artist, painting a path through the cold. The storm hit the village with a fierce howl, snow swirling like wild spirits across the sky. Trees bent beneath the weight of ice, and the river vanished beneath a thick sheet of glassy frost. Elias, Joran, and Lys stood together by the largest window, the heart of the winter storm glowing between them, a swirling, icy spiral of blue and white light. "We must hold it steady," Elias said, voice calm but urgent. "The storm's power is wild, but if we work as one, we can tame it." They lifted their twig brushes, moving in perfect rhythm, tracing patterns of frost across the glass. Each stroke was careful, balancing sharp ice shards with soft curves of warmth. The frost crackled and sang, responding to their touch. The storm outside seemed to pause, caught in the dance of their magic. But suddenly, a sharp crack split the air. The frost spiral shuddered, threatening to shatter. From the swirling snow, a dark shadow emerged. A figure cloaked in frost and shadow, eyes glowing like frozen fire. "You trespass on winter's deepest secrets," the figure hissed. "The storm belongs to no one." Elias stepped forward, holding his brush steady. "We do not seek to control, only to balance." The shadow laughed, cold and hollow. "Balance is a lie. Winter is chaos." Joran gripped Elias's arm, whispering, "What do we do?" Elias met the shadow's gaze, breath steady. "We paint, we create, we bring life to the frost." Together, Elias, Joran, and Lys poured their hearts into the frost art. The glowing spiral grew brighter, stronger, pushing back the shadow. The storm howled louder, but the frost art held firm, a beacon of light and warmth in the frozen night. The shadow recoiled, shrinking beneath the fierce glow of the frost spiral. Its icy breath hissed, melting into mist as Elias and his companions wove their magic with steady hands and warm hearts. The storm's howl softened, the wild wind settling into a gentle whisper. The snowflakes slowed their dance, sparkling like tiny stars in the quiet air. Elias felt the frost beneath his fingers pulse with life, a rhythm matching his own heartbeat. The magic they had created was not just cold and ice. It was hope, resilience, and light. Joran smiled, his breath forming soft clouds. "We did it. The storm is calm." Lys nodded, eyes shining. "But winter's magic is endless. There will always be new challenges." Elias looked out across the village, windows glowing with frost art, faces filled with wonder and warmth. "Then we keep painting," he said softly. Together, as dawn broke, the frost art shimmered one last time, then settled into a gentle glow that promised winter's magic would live on, not as a force of fear, but as a story of balance and beauty. And in the heart of the village, Elias, the frost artist, knew that with each cold breath, a new story waited to be painted. Winter slowly eased its grip, but the frost art remained, a gentle glow on every window, a reminder of the magic that lived in the cold. Elias, Joran, and Lys continued their nightly work, exploring the frost's endless stories. Each painting was a new adventure. Icy forests filled with glowing animals, frozen castles shimmering beneath starry skies, and ships that sailed on seas of crystal. One evening, as they painted beneath the moon's pale light, Elias noticed a small figure watching from the shadows. A young girl with wide eyes and trembling hands. She stepped forward hesitantly. "I want to learn," she whispered. Elias smiled warmly. "Then come. The frost speaks to those who listen." The girl joined their circle, and under Elias's patient guidance, her fingers learned to trace the delicate patterns of frost, breathing life into frozen glass. The village began to change. Children and elders alike gathered to watch the frost art, their hearts warmed by its gentle glow. Elias felt a deep peace. The magic was no longer his alone. It belonged to the village, woven into the fabric of winter itself. As snowflakes drifted softly outside, Elias whispered, "Winter's story is ours to tell," and with every breath of frost, a new chapter began. Winter deepened once more, but this time it felt different, softer, kinder, alive with possibility. The frost art on the windows seemed to pulse with a gentle heartbeat, weaving its magic through the village like a warm embrace. Elias sat by the fire, watching the new apprentice, the young girl named Mira, carefully draw frost patterns on a pane. Her eyes sparkled with wonder and determination. "Your touch is light," Elias said. "The frost listens when your heart is open." Mira smiled shyly. "It's like the frost is alive." "It is," Elias nodded, "and it holds the stories of every winter before us." Outside, the cold wind whispered through the trees, carrying secrets of snow and ice. Suddenly, a soft tapping came at the window. Elias looked up to see a small frost butterfly resting on the glass, wings shimmering like broken glass. Mira gasped, "I've never seen one before." Elias reached out carefully, letting the butterfly's icy wings brush his fingers. "They are rare messengers of winter's magic. When you see one, it means the frost trusts you." Myra's eyes widened with joy. The village gathered around that night, drawn by the glowing frost art and the gentle magic filling the air. Together, they shared stories, laughter, and warmth beneath the frozen stars. Elias realized then that his gift was not just the frost he painted. It was the hope and connection it brought to the hearts of everyone around him. And as the frost butterflies danced across the windows, Elias knew winter's magic would live on for many seasons to come. As the weeks passed, the village flourished under the gentle spell of the frost art. The magic that Elias had awakened now seemed woven into the very air, wrapping around every person, tree, and building like a silvery cloak. One clear night, Elias, Joran, and Mira gathered atop the highest hill, looking down on the village blanketed in snow. The windows glowed softly, each a frozen masterpiece that warmed the heart even in the cold. Lys joined them, her eyes reflecting the shimmering lights below. "Winter's magic is strongest when shared," she said softly. "You have brought the village together in a way few could imagine." Elias smiled, breathing in the crisp night air. "It's not just the frost, it's the people, their hopes, their stories. They give the magic life." Joran nodded. "And we've only just begun." Suddenly, a distant roar echoed across the valley, a sound like rushing wind and cracking ice. The group turned toward the sound, eyes wide. From the snowy horizon emerged a great glacier, slowly moving toward the village, its surface alive with shifting frost patterns that seemed to pulse with energy. "It's the heart of winter," Lys whispered, "a living force that awakens once every century." Elias felt a surge of both fear and wonder. The glacier carried ancient magic, powerful, unpredictable, and full of mystery. "We must greet it with respect," Elias said, voice steady, "and welcome the next chapter of our story." Together, they prepared to meet the living glacier, ready to paint a future where frost and warmth could coexist forever. As the glacier slowly advanced, the village held its breath. Its surface shimmered with swirling frost patterns that glowed like living veins of ice. The ground trembled softly beneath Elias's feet as he watched the ancient force approach. "We've never seen anything like this," Joran murmured, eyes wide with awe and fear. Liz stepped forward, her voice calm and steady. "The heart of winter carries the memories of countless winters. It is a guardian, a storyteller, and a test." Elias nodded. "We must show it that our magic is strong, that we respect the balance." Together they set to work. With brushes and breath, they painted frost patterns on the glacier's gleaming surface. A swirling dance of light and shadow, warmth and cold. The glacier responded, its frosty surface rippling like water, sending waves of shimmering light into the night. Suddenly, a voice echoed, not from a person, but from the ice itself, deep and resonant. "You have awakened the frost's heart and learned its song," it said. "But now you must prove your bond. Will you guard the balance as winter's artists?" Elias stepped forward, heart steady. "We will. We will protect the magic and share its stories." The glacier pulsed with light, and then, slowly, it began to shrink, melting into a sparkling stream that flowed through the village, carrying the frost's magic into every corner. The village rejoiced, their hearts warmed by the gift of living winter magic. Elias looked to Joran and Mira, smiling. "Our story continues." The frost glowed softly on every window, a living reminder that even in the coldest times, warmth and magic could thrive. Spring's first light touched the village, but the frost art remained, gentle patterns glimmering softly on every window, reminders of winter's lasting magic. Elias, Joran, Mira, and Liz gathered by the riverbank, where the glacier had melted into a sparkling stream. The water sang as it flowed, carrying whispers of frost and ice. "It's a new beginning," Elias said, watching the light dance on the surface. Mira smiled. "I never thought frost could feel so alive." Liz nodded. "Magic is about change. The frost taught us to find balance, but now it's time to grow." Joran bent down, scooping a handful of the cold water. "And we'll keep painting, sharing stories of frost and warmth." Elias looked around at the village, alive with life and light. The frost is no longer just art on windows. It's part of us. As the sun rose higher, the frost patterns shimmered and slowly faded, making way for the green of spring. But deep in the hearts of the villagers, the magic of winter lived on, waiting for the next cold breath, the next story to be painted. Elias smiled, knowing that no matter the season, the frost artist's journey would never end. Summer came quietly to the village, softening the edges of winter's hold. Flowers bloomed in bright patches amid the melting snowbanks, and the air filled with the sweet scent of pine and wildflowers. Elias found himself restless without the sharp chill of frost to inspire him. The windows were clear now, empty canvases longing for the return of winter's breath. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with pink and gold, Elias sat on the porch, watching the river sparkle under the fading light. Joran and Mira joined him, carrying brushes and small bottles filled with water from the melting glacier stream. "Do you think the frost will come back?" Mira asked, eyes wide with hope. Elias smiled gently. "Winter will always return, as long as we remember its stories." Liz appeared then, her voice soft like a breeze. "Magic sleeps in the warm months, gathering strength for the cold. It waits for those who listen." Together, they made a pact, to honor the frost's magic all year, weaving its lessons into their lives even when the ice was gone. That night, Elias dreamed of frost patterns swirling in the summer breeze, snowflakes made of light, dancing softly on warm winds. He woke with a smile, ready to carry the frost's magic forward, no matter the season. As summer stretched on, Elias and his friends found new ways to share the magic of frost. They crafted delicate sculptures from glass and crystal, capturing the beauty of ice without the cold. They told stories beneath the shade of trees, weaving winter's whispers into tales that warmed hearts. One warm evening, the village gathered for a festival, the festival of frost and light. A celebration born from the magic Elias had awakened. Lanterns hung from branches, glowing softly as children played and danced. In the center of the square, Elias and Mira unveiled their latest creation. A giant glass sculpture of the frost stag, its antlers sparkling in the twilight. As the sun set, a gentle breeze stirred, carrying the faintest scent of snow. The glass shimmered, reflecting the lantern light in dazzling patterns. The villagers gasped, their eyes shining with wonder. Elias stepped forward, voice ringing clear. Winter's magic lives in our hearts, not just in frost. It is the light we carry through the coldest nights. The crowd cheered, their warmth filling the night air. As stars blanketed the sky, Elias looked to the horizon, knowing the frost would return. And with it, new stories, new magic, and new dreams waiting to be painted on the windows of the world. As summer faded, the first whispers of autumn crept into the air. Crisp evenings brought the scent of wood smoke and fallen leaves, and the village prepared for the return of winter's quiet magic. Elias felt a familiar thrill as the nights grew colder, the breath of frost beginning to return to the glass panes. One chilly morning, he woke to find thin veils of frost already tracing delicate patterns on the windows, a soft promise of the season to come. He gathered Joran, Mira, and Liz, sharing the excitement that pulsed through the village. "We have a chance to welcome winter again," Elias said, eyes bright, "to teach the frost new stories." Together, they walked through the village, encouraging everyone to watch for the first frost and to remember the magic it carried. That night, as the frost thickened and glittered under the moonlight, Elias painted again, drawing new shapes. Soaring birds made of ice, frozen rivers that shimmered like glass, and winding paths that led to hidden places. The frost responded, glowing softly, inviting the villagers to touch and believe once more. And as the village settled under a blanket of snow, Elias knew that winter's story was alive and waiting to be told again. The village awoke to a world transformed. Fields of white stretched to the horizon, and every window wore a delicate lace of frost, shimmering in the pale dawn. Elias wandered through the streets, greeting neighbors whose faces were bright with wonder and joy. Children pressed their mittened hands against frosted glass, tracing the icy patterns with wide eyes. At the town square, Elias found Liz and Mira setting up a circle of lanterns, their warm glow reflecting in the frost. "Ready for the first night of frost art?" Mira asked, excitement bubbling in her voice. Elias nodded, his heart full. "Let's paint stories that will warm the coldest nights." As darkness fell, the village gathered. Elias took his twig brush and began to draw on the largest window, breath steady, fingers sure. Slowly, images emerged. A mighty stag with antlers sparkling like stars, a castle of ice rising into the night sky, and a ship with sails full of frozen light, sailing across the glassy sea. One by one, the townsfolk joined, their hands moving carefully, painting frost and breathing magic into the night. The frost glowed brighter than ever, alive with stories and warmth. Elias looked around at the smiling faces, knowing that the magic of frost was no longer just his. It belonged to everyone. And as the first frost settled deep into the village, Elias whispered to the cold air, "This is just the beginning." The frost art became a nightly ritual, each evening bringing new wonders to the windows of the village. Families gathered together, sharing stories and laughter as they added their own frost patterns, weaving their lives into the magic. One particularly cold night, Elias noticed something unusual. A tiny frost flower blooming on a window pane, its petals shimmering with colors he had never seen before. He reached out, fingertips brushing the delicate bloom. Warmth spread through his hand, and the frost flower pulsed softly, glowing like a heartbeat. Joran and Mira came to see, their eyes wide with awe. "It's a frost bloom," Liz explained, stepping forward. "A rare sign that winter's magic is growing stronger." Elias smiled, feeling hope rise in his chest. "Then our work is not done. There are still new stories to tell." Together, they painted under the watchful stars, creating frost flowers that blossomed across the village, each one a symbol of life in the cold. The townsfolk traced the petals with gloved fingers, feeling the warmth of winter's magic reach deep into their hearts. And Elias knew that the frost artist's gift was forever. A living, breathing magic that would bloom again and again. As winter deepened, the frost flowers multiplied, glowing softly on windows all over the village. Their gentle light filled the long nights with hope and warmth, and the people felt a renewed connection to the magic that surrounded them. One evening, as Elias stood by the largest frost flower in the town square, he noticed a small boy watching from the edge of the crowd. The boy's eyes sparkled with curiosity and wonder. Elias beckoned him closer. "Would you like to learn how to paint frost art?" The boy nodded eagerly, stepping forward with a shy smile. Elias handed him a twig brush, worn smooth from years of use. "Remember, the frost listens to your heart. Be patient and gentle." Together, they traced delicate patterns on the glass, the frost responding with soft glows and shimmering lines. The boy laughed with delight as a frost flower blossomed beneath his fingertips. Watching the boy, Elias felt a deep satisfaction. The magic of frost was no longer his alone. It was a gift to be shared, passed down through generations. And as the village slept beneath a blanket of snow, the frost flowers glowed brighter, promising new stories, new dreams, and endless magic. Winter wore on, and the village thrived beneath its shimmering frost blanket. Children learned to paint with icy brushes, elders told stories of winter's past, and the frost art grew richer with every passing night. One evening, Elias and his apprentices gathered by the frozen river, the water beneath a crystal sheet alive with shimmering frost shapes. Lys looked up at the stars, her breath a soft mist. The frost's magic is part of the world's heart, connects us to the earth, the sky, and each other. Elias nodded. "And it teaches us patience, balance, and hope." Joran smiled. "We are lucky to be part of its story." As they painted the river's surface, a sudden crack echoed beneath the ice. The frost shifted and glowed, revealing a hidden pattern. A map made of frost lines, twisting like veins through the glassy river. Mira traced the map with wide eyes. Where does it lead? Elias's heart quickened. Perhaps to new stories, new magic. The frost pulsed softly, inviting them to follow. Together, they prepared to embark on a new journey, guided by the living frost, ready to discover the mysteries waiting beyond their village. The morning sun cast pale light over the village as Elias, Joran, Mira, and Lys prepared for their journey. The frost map glowed faintly on the frozen river, promising a path through the winter wilderness beyond. "We'll need supplies," Lys said, her voice steady. "The frost's magic will guide us, but the journey will be long." Elias packed his brushes carefully, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. This is more than an adventure. It's a chance to learn, to grow. Joran tightened his scarf and smiled. "I'm ready." Mira looked nervous but determined. "Me too." Together, they stepped into the snowy forest, following the glowing frost lines that sparkled beneath their feet. The trees stood tall and silent, their branches heavy with snow. Frost crystals caught the light, shimmering like stars in the cold air. As they walked, Elias felt the frost's magic pulse beneath the ground and in the crisp breath of the wind. "It's alive," he whispered, watching, guiding. The path twisted and turned, leading them deeper into the heart of winter's secret places. And with every step, Elias knew their story was unfolding. A tale of frost and courage, waiting to be painted in the icy canvas of the world. The forest grew quieter as they ventured deeper, the snow crunching softly beneath their boots. The frost map glowed brighter, its shimmering lines guiding them through hidden paths and ancient trees wrapped in ice. Suddenly, the air grew colder, and a soft humming filled the silence. A song of winter, ancient and pure. Ahead, they found a clearing bathed in moonlight, where a frozen lake stretched wide and still. At its center, a towering ice tree stood, its branches sparkling with frost blossoms that glowed like stars. Elias stepped forward, awe filling his heart. "This is the heart of frost," Lys said softly. "A place of great magic, where winter's spirit rests. Joran knelt by the ice, tracing delicate patterns that pulsed with light. Mira reached out, touching a frost blossom, and warmth spread through her fingers. Elias lifted his brush, ready to paint the greatest story yet. The story of frost, of balance, and of the magic that lives in every frozen breath. Together, they painted under the shimmering sky, their art weaving life into the frozen world. And as the night deepened, the frost glowed brighter than ever, a living story that would never fade.